Okay, so we're going to be going over the home link for 8-5. I have brought up the answers here so you can check to see if you have your X's in the right places. And I'm also going to talk about how those X's came to be in those places. So again, we have halves, fourths, and eighths for our denominators. And we have a line plot that goes from 6.5 to 9.5. And if you look, let's start with 7 and go to 8. And we're going to see how many spaces they have. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So they broke it into eighths. So you can see that the eighths are going to work just fine. But anything that's halves or fourths, you're going to have to change those into eighths to figure out where they go. So 6.5 would be the same as 6 4/8. There were 2 of those. And then this one would be 6 7/8. And you'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those. There are no 7s. 7 1/8, you had 2. 7 1/2 is the same as 7 4/8. There were 2 of those. 8, you had 3. 8 2/8, which is the same as 8 1/4. You had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of those. 8 3/8, you had 1. 9, you had 1. 9 2/8, you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 9 2/8 would be the same as 9 1/4. And then you had 9 3/8. So if you notice, one thing that's really important to notice is they have 9.5 on our line plot, but there are no X's here. So this is not our largest amount, okay? So just make sure you realize that just because that number is there does not mean that they have that in stock or whatever they're talking about in the story. So let's go ahead and read the story. Should have done that first, I guess. Nicholas is building a bookcase. To help with the design, he measured the height of each of his books to the nearest 1/8 inch. His measurements are given below. So those are all the heights of his books, okay? So does he have any books that measure 9.5 inches? The answer would be no. Okay, so what's the difference in height between the tallest and shortest book? So this X means the tallest book, and these are the shortest books. So the tallest book would be 9 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, right? So we have 9 3/8 for the tallest book. And then the shortest book is 6 1/2. So here we have a problem because we know when we add or subtract fractions, we have to have our denominators the same, and we do not. We have eighths here and halves here. So we're going to have to make an equivalent fraction, and the one that works the best here would be to change 1/2 into eighths. So we're going to do that first. So I'm going to erase just this part. So 1/2, if we change it to eighths, okay, so 1/2 changing into eighths, remember we have to multiply. So if we want it to be eighths, we're going to take the 2 times the 4 to get our 8. And then we have to take 1 times 4 also. So 1/2 is equivalent to 4/8. So 6 4/8 is the same as 6 1/2. Now, we have a second problem. We have 3/8 minus 4/8. So we have to have more eighths up here so we can subtract. So we're going to take one of our wholes, and we're going to change that whole that we borrowed here into 8/8 because 8/8 is equal to that one whole. So we're going to add 8/8 here because remember we borrowed a whole and 8/8 is equal to one whole. So 3/8 plus 8/8 would be 11/8. So now on our top we have, instead of 9 3/8, we have 8 11/8, and then we can subtract. 11/8 minus 4/8 is 7/8. 8 minus 6 is 2. So that's how they came up with the answer of 2 7/8. Nicholas wants the space between the shelves to be 7/8 inch taller than his tallest book. So how far apart should he make the shelves? This is his tallest book right here, 9 3/8. And they tell us that he wants it to be 7/8 taller than that, okay? So he'd have to add 7/8 to this. So there's two different answers you could have for this one. They only show you one. But you, 3/8 plus, sorry, that should be an 8. I'm already adding in my head. 3/8 plus 7/8 would be 10/8. And then we have our 9. So that's one correct answer, 9 and 10/8. Okay. Now 10/8 is equal to 1 whole plus 2 more 8ths. So it's the same as 10 and 2/8. So you could either have this answer or 9 and 10/8. Or they're saying that 2/8 is the same as 1/4. You could have 10 and 1/4 also. Okay, B, if the thickness of the wood he uses for the shelves is 5/8 of an inch, what will be the total height of each shelf? And so they give you the clue here that the total height is the thickness of one piece of wood plus the distance between the shelves. So we know the distance between the shelves is 10 and 2/8. So then we just have to add 5/8 to it. So 10 and 2/8 plus 5/8 is 10 and 7/8. If you did 9 and 10/8 plus 5/8, then you would have gotten 9 and 15/8. So that is a correct answer also. And then you had two problems at the bottom. 8,207 divided by 7. Whoa, that does not look like a 7. Okay, so again, I see 7 and 8 here, so I know I can do 1 times 7 and get 7. So I'm going to take 7 times 1,000 to get 7,000, and then subtract. So then I have 1,207. Okay, so I know I can do 1, 7 to get to 12, so 1 times 7 is 7. That's as close as I'm going to get. So I can do 100 times 7 to get 700. Then I have 507 left. Now, instead of just looking at the first number, I'm going to look at the first two numbers. So 7 and 50. Well, I know 7 times 7 is 49, and that's going to get me really close to 50. So I'm going to do 7 times 70 and get 490. And then I have 17 left. Whoops, I'm going to have to go up here. I'm just going to write that bottom part. So I have 17 left. And then I can do 2 7s to get 14. And then I have 3 left. And that's smaller than my divisor, so that's my remainder. So I had 1,172 remainder 3s, how I got my answer. Okay, you erase that here. Some of it at least. And then we can do the second problem. All right, so 7,109 divided by 8. Okay, so I'm going to look at 8 and 71. Well, I know 8 times 9 is 72, but that's too much. So I can do 8 times 8 to get 64, and then I have two more digits behind that. So I'm going to do 800 times 8. Excuse me. So 800 times 8 is 6,400. Then I can subtract. 9 minus 0 is 9. 0 minus 0 is 0. 1 minus 4, I'm going to have to borrow from the thousands place and add 10 hundreds to this, so I have 11 hundreds. 11 minus 4 is 7, and 6 minus 6 is nothing. So I have 709 divided by 8. So again, I can do 8 times 8 and get 64 here. So now I'm going to do it times 80. So 80 times 8 is 640. So 9 minus 0 is 9. And then I have to borrow. So I have 10 tens. 10 minus 4 is 6, and 6 minus 6 is nothing. 8 times 8 is going to give me 64. And when I subtract, I have 5 left. And this is smaller than this, so I'm done. That's my remainder. So 888 remainder 5 is how you would get that problem. So that is home link 8.5. Thanks for watching.